Okay, lots of talk in Michigan, everybody, about the 35th Senate District. Joining me, Tony Stamas, right now. Give me a little. You have done so much in your life, but currently, what is your role?
Yes, Dave, great to be with you. I'm the president and CEO of the Midland Business Alliance. We're kind of a traditional legacy chamber, economic development. We've got a couple other key partners here and just try and work to help grow Midland's business community, work with our partners in the Great Lakes Bay region, and just be a place that can grow and thrive.
That's great news, and that's something we all hope for. Right now, the Michigan 35th Senate seat, we do not have a state senator, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and this is not going to be an issue of Democrat, Republican. It's just a matter right now we have no representation.
Right. That
Okay.
is correct.
Give me a little background for someone who might be watching who may not be heavily involved in Michigan politics. How did this come up? I know how it came about, but how did
Sure.
it come about? The basics. How did it come about?
Right. Our previous state senator, Kristen McDonald Rivet, was elected real active campaign last year to the U.S. House of Representatives to Congress, and she took office the beginning of January. And so that happens. People they might run for mayor in a community, they might run for another office. But it is provided for in Michigan's constitution that in such a case, the governor shall call a special election. So it wasn't open until January. Now, up to this point, well into March, we have not had a special election called by the governor. And so, the effect of that is that we do have this district representing, a significant part of Midland County, Bay County, Saginaw County, that doesn't have representation at the state Senate level. And for those following, at the state level, it's a bit of the kind of the great compromise scenario that we have in Washington, D.C., where we have the state representatives that represent, smaller districts, the state senators that represent a larger population area, but equal, nothing can go through and get to the governor without it going through both those chambers. So really a critical spot for our community, for our region to have a voice.
And I don't know if you know this, but I've looked into it. There's no timeline legally or constitution that the governor has to call an election, or do we know that?
Right, right. Well, I always preface it by my experiences. I'm a pizza maker by training, not an attorney. But yes, no, as we understand it, it says the governor shall call a special election, but it doesn't set the terms of what that shall means. And
Okay.
so, no, I would say that we've seen in recent years where there have been openings. By and large, the elections have been called pretty quickly. I think there was a couple House seats 2 years ago, and those were already being well into the way of being filled at this point. So while it doesn't specifically say that, what I would say is the precedent bent by this governor, and I think most past governors, that they're filled as expeditiously as possible. And so I'm hoping that very soon we'll hear something, but it has been very quiet.
The Michigan Senate is very, very close, correct?
It is
Within the political makeup of it.
correct.
And
Correct. It's 19 Democrats, 18 Republicans. In case of a tie, Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist would break that. So right now, Democrats have a majority because it's based on how many are elected and serving. So you have one less than you would otherwise elected and serving.
yeah.
But yeah, it is an incredibly close breakdown between the two parties.
And I've heard, and like I started this conversation, it shouldn't be political because I've heard Democrat. I live in this area. I live in the area represented by the Senate seat, and I've heard Democrats and Republicans both come to me and say, "Hey, we need a representative," and they're saying it's not it for them. It's not politics. Is that they want a person to represent them, no matter who that person might be.
Yeah, and I think that's our position. I mean, the seat as it breaks down is a really close seat. I think the numbers kind of speak to it. It's almost an even divide between the parties. But from our perspective, let's have an election, let the electoral process work its way out. But already this year we've been in the midst of the earned sick time, and based on the state supreme court's ruling, what that was going to mean, and I said not just to businesses, but to every nonprofit in our state, to every governmental entity accepting the federal government, what that was going to mean.
Yeah.
And thankfully there was work done. I mean, it's not exactly where we wanted it, but there were significant improvements made, and that was on a bipartisan basis. And it kind of speaks to why we worked with our state representative. We have a state senator that has a portion of Midland County, but it certainly would have been nice to have a state senator. And as we go into the budget cycle, as we all continue to deal with challenges, be it housing, childcare, making sure that we have a voice in Lansing that can speak to what real solutions and tools look like, and also what are going to be impediments and challenges that are just not helping or not going to help.
And also with the state senator, it's not just the things people see. Because I, as a news reporter in my previous day at the station, I remember average, people in the district would call their state senator, "Hey, help me with this, help me with that."
Right.
So I don't know how that works now if there is no state senator, because people often reach out. State senators have town halls and office hours, so it's more than just not having. It's not having a human being to reach out to.
Absolutely. And I had the honor of quite a few years ago now, 15 years ago, serving in the state Senate.
Yeah.
And that was part of my role, was going to each of the communities that I represented, hearing from people. They might have a broader policy concern, but they might have a very specific concern, a problem they were having with the state, a problem they and their family were having, an issue. And, I think they assigned staff to still help with that, but it's not the same as having. I think that's the whole concept, is that we have somebody who's elected to the role that people can connect with and reach out to. And I think that you're right. That is really important constituent work in terms of your district. And again, that's bipartisan. You're trying to help people, irrespective of whether they vote for you or not. But that's part of your job in that role.
So I guess the message to the governor, no matter what side you're coming from, politics plays a role in everything. I know.
Right.
I'm realistic, but it's best just to call for the election.
There is no good reason why this election can't be called. There are reasons, but I would argue they're not good reasons why this election shouldn't be called as soon as possible, and that we should have that opportunity to have a state senator serving in Lansing that we can partner with. Again, the election will take care of itself on whatever side of the aisle that falls. But I think I would hope the governor would hear that message, and we would see a special election called in the very near future.
Yeah, because at her State of the Union, she seemed to come together and maybe more so than any other State of the Union, try to bridge a gap between both sides, at least, whether she has presidential inspirations or whatever. But it seems like she's hopefully, honestly, trying to bring both sides together.
Yeah, and I think this is one we can all agree on. I think people look at it and say, well, we should have a state senator serving for the 35th district, and so yeah, again, that seems like that would be a common point that we could all concur on. And then just you look at the mechanics and you set the dates. I think again, we've seen it in recent years done very quickly, but let's get those dates on the calendar, and so that process can begin.
Last question, kind of unrelated, but related to what you do. What advice do you have for people in Michigan? A lot of times people get, if people say, I'm leaving from I'm moving from Michigan. I don't like this. I don't like that. But there's a lot of good things that are happening here. And even the governor talked about making, regulation and licensing easier for business and so forth. What are some of the positives that you see in our future? Because we live in a great state.
We really do. And, Midland's been my home, and we've had a business here for 65 years. It's a great state. It's a great community, the Great Lakes Bay region, and the state of Michigan. I think, feel very fortunate to be here each day. But yeah, I do. I think there's some exciting things happening. I think there's opportunities. Are there challenges? Absolutely. But we're going to see that no matter where we go. And I think for those of us that love our state and want to see it grow, I think there's a chance. And I think make our voices heard, get engaged. And so many people do that at the local level. They do it, whether it's through their church, through a nonprofit. Be engaged, be involved. It does make a difference, but also make your voice heard. I think that's really, sometimes we're whether it be social media or whatever, which are important tools, but just take the time to let the folks know what you think, what your thoughts and your concerns and your experiences are.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. You're doing great work, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be with you.
Okay. Thank